Welcome to today's webinar. Good morning or good afternoon, wherever you might be. I'm Rosanna Francescato, and I'm the Communications Manager for Seneca Environmental. And we're really glad to have you here today for the webinar to talk about how you can amplify your impact by working with Native nations and tribally owned companies. And this is really, there's a lot of new opportunities, and by coming here, you're really at the forefront of what's happening. I'm hoping that this will be the norm before long. And right now it's still a little bit new, but there's a lot of cool stuff happening. So we're excited to have you here to talk about it. And before we get into the webinar, I just want to go over a few housekeeping items. So if we can go to the next slide. All right, while we're waiting for the next slide, I will just say that we are recording today's webinar, and we will send you the recording and slides within the next couple days. And if you have a question at any time during the webinar, go ahead and click the Q&A icon and submit your question, and we will answer questions at the end of the webinar in the Q&A session. We're excited to have some really great speakers today. From Seneca Environmental, we have Matt Renner, our Vice President, and Winona Scott, who's our Business Operations Manager. And Winona is also a member of the Seneca Nation. From Schneider Electric, we have Serena Lesnar, who's the Manager of Renewable Energy Advisory there. And we're lucky to also have with us today Mia Ketterling from Pinterest, who's their Senior Sustainability Lead. So before we get into it, I want to start with a quick poll. And we want to learn what your top clean energy purchasing goals are. Are they dollar savings, clean energy, equity, or diverse suppliers? So if you could go ahead and fill in the poll, and we'll go on and see what answers come into that. And while you're doing that, I'll just quickly go over today's agenda. If we can go to the next slide. We're going to talk about, I see some responses coming in, that's great. So we're going to talk about the different opportunities that are available now for clean energy purchasing with Native nations and tribally owned companies. And then what's the current state of tribal energy development and corporate energy purchasing? Obviously, there's a lot of moving parts these days and a lot going on. And different ways that you can work with tribally owned companies and Native nations. There might be some ways you haven't thought about. And then we're going to talk about the really big impact that you can have by doing this work. And we'll follow that, of course, with the Q&A. So I'm going to, I think I'll end the poll now, but you can feel free to get back to us later, follow up, and let us know what your goals are. But not too surprisingly, there's a lot of interest in dollar savings, clean energy, and equity. It looks like diverse supplier goals are a little lower on the list for this particular group. Oh, let me see. I don't know if I shared the results. Okay. Well, thank you very much for participating in that. And without further ado, I would like to pass it along to Winona Scott to start us off with an introduction about the Seneca Nation. So Winona, go ahead.
Hi, everyone. I'm not going to read everything on the screen, but if you aren't aware of some of this information about the Seneca Nation, I will give you a little brief history. The Seneca Nation, of course, has been on this continent, North America, for quite a long time. We are part of the Iroquois Confederacy. That is the English version. The Seneca version is what we call ourselves as the Haudenosaunee Confederacy. We are located in what is now New York State. We have had a lot of influence on the world that we live in now. If you weren't aware of this, the U.S. Constitution and the form of government were based on the Iroquois Confederacies. The way that we operated our tribes together. We are the westernmost of the Six Nations, and we're known as the Keepers of the Western Door. We are a matrilineal society, so women are looked upon as very strong, very important. I love being a Seneca woman. If you also didn't know this, the first Women's Rights Convention was held in Seneca Falls in July of 1848. And another little fun fact, oil was first recorded or mentioned in North America on Seneca land. It's about half an hour away from me. The Seneca Nation has a lot of different successful businesses, one of them being Seneca Holdings, Seneca Environmental. We also have some casinos in Niagara Falls, Buffalo, and where I'm located in Salamanca, New York. But we also realize, of course, that we have to have collaboration in order to succeed, and that is key in fighting climate change. I'm not sure if any of you have heard of the seventh generation principle. There's a couple different ways that it can be described. It can be seven generations ago, Seneca leaders or other Native leaders made decisions that impact me. The other way that some people describe it is both a backwards looking couple generations ago and then me thinking I'm the connector to a couple of generations down from me. So great grandchildren, for example. Our revenue from the Seneca Nation provides a lot of support to the community, uh, not just Seneca community, but we also help other communities. If you weren't aware of this, the Cayuga Nation, which is part of the Iroquois Confederacy, they didn't have land for a long time. So Senecas used to, or still do, provide support to them as well. I'm going to turn it over to Matt Renner, Seneca Environmental's Vice President, to tell you a little bit more about our companies. And I'll be back later.
Well, Nona, thank you so much. And thanks everyone for joining today. I'm super excited, and I have been since we planned this to be working on this webinar with Winona and along with Serena and Mia. And this morning I realized how lucky I am to have so many amazing women working in sustainability and climate change that I've had a chance to partner with throughout my career, and including Rosanna too, who's going to mostly be behind the scenes. But fantastic to be a part of this panel. The climate movement is really where my passion and heart are, along with racial and economic justice, which I've been part of various movements for a long time. What I'd say though is that I've always been fascinated by the clean energy economy and what it's capable of for many reasons, but because I believe it can address many of our challenges all at once if it's done properly. So I jumped at the chance to join Seneca Environmental as the first employee about 3.5 years ago, back when we were called Seneca Solar, with the mission to equitably deploy and invest in innovative climate solutions that heal the earth. And like I said, I feel so lucky to be surrounded by people who are on this webinar who make decisions about flows of capital, and the people on this call as panel members who are dedicating their time and energy to scaling the solutions that we all see in front of us in what is a very strong headwind at the moment. So in these moments of turbulence and challenge, it's from the bottom of my heart that I want to just express my gratitude to everyone who is leading and making decisions and fighting the good fight. And I'm sure Mia will tell you a little bit about her efforts at Pinterest to become the leader that she is there. So thank you all. And when you do receive these slides, please take a minute to take a look at the video that we have linked here in the slides that Time did last year. The key foundational principles that Seneca Environmental is based on is figuring out the equitable path to renewable energy participation by Native communities. And I, as a non-Native person, it is again the honor of my life to be working on this pursuit, and to all the people who have come before us and who have been working on this for 30 years. I just want to express my gratitude and look forward to collaborating across the industry and across the different corporate buyers to help uplift and engage with the Native energy leaders. I can go to the next slide, Whitner. So the topic for today is supporting Native communities and how to engage your climate and clean energy work with supporting Native communities. Everyone, I'm sure, has heard of direct contributions in philanthropy. That's pretty straightforward. Enterprise development is a little more complicated, but potentially even more impactful, which is helping Native communities build both Native-owned and tribally owned companies that can engage and support functions related to climate change. The difference between tribally owned and native-owned companies is that tribally owned companies are actually owned by the government of the tribe itself or the native nation. And the difference there is it is the only form of government in the United States that can own and operate for-profit businesses. So tribally owned enterprise is actually a direct path to doing business with the democratically elected representatives of Native communities, which can have a direct impact on the economies there. Other ways to support are workforce training, as well as when you do plan upgrades or facility development, infrastructure upgrades and modernization that will have downstream supportive impacts on Native communities can also be considered. I want to talk a little bit about the state of tribal energy development. There was a big upswing in momentum when the Biden administration helped pass or signed the Inflation Reduction Act. That solved some key problems that had made it so renewable energy investing and development was much more challenging and not as lucrative for tribes and for Native communities. The Seneca Energy, is the tribal utility of the Seneca Nation, had previous to this Inflation Reduction Act built an Allegheny solar project as well as a wind turbine that are essentially community solar and community wind assets on the Seneca Nation lands. Anthony Giacobbe, the general manager there, has done an amazing job and is somebody definitely to look up if you're in this space. He's also won an award recently. Seneca Energy recently won an award for the residential solar program on Seneca lands. So Seneca has been a leader in the tribal energy space for a while now, along with other tribes such as Blue Lake Rancheria, who has a microgrid operating to support their facilities there, and the Navajo Tribal Utility Authority, who has some of the larger scale solar projects that are actually operating and selling RECs and selling power. The evolution where we're headed as a movement, there's a number of other projects that are listed at the link here, and maybe some others that aren't. And there's a number that are in development right now as a result of the Inflation Reduction Act and all the progress that was made to advance the concepts and the sign off and to get projects in development on tribal lands. One unique thing that Seneca Environmental is doing that I want to point out is and there are a few other tribes that are doing the same, looking to purchase renewable energy assets that are in development and then own and operate them outside of tribal lands. So you have a little teaser here of a project that we are working to acquire. That's a 100 megawatt solar project or more. It's in development, and we are looking for somebody who wants to buy the power. So happy to be in touch if that's you. Next slide, please, Winner. Another one I'd like to point out and feature here is an amazing transformation at the Moapa Band of Paiutes Reservation outside of Las Vegas, where they were a hugely impacted coal community downwind from a coal plant and coal ponds, they're called, where the dust from the fly ash is just punishing the community downwind. The Sierra Club and the Moapa Southern Paiute Band worked together to actually get that coal plant closed, fighting NV Energy there, and then worked to actually develop 3 separate, very large utility scale solar projects on their lands. These are third-party owned and developed projects that then support the Moapa community with lease revenues, jobs, and basically pulling them into the energy industry and having them be a part of this transformation. We are very thankful to know the folks at Moapa and to be very familiar with these projects at this time. And there's more to come, so stay tuned. And with that, I would love to hand it over to Serena.
Thank you, Matt. And hello, everybody. I'm going to talk about the current state of corporate energy purchasing. I advise many voluntary corporate energy buyers like yourselves. And so we wanted to take the opportunity just to share what your peers are doing and what they're thinking about in the impactful strategy mechanism. So as you all know, voluntary buyers use a ton of electricity, but as such, you all buyers are still looking to decarbonize all of your operations and looking for ways to do that that fits into the impactful categories. And there, of course, is not a one-size-fits-all approach. Many of the corporations that I advise have volume consumption of north of 250,000 megawatt hours on an annual basis. So by no means is there one clear strategy for any one buyer. But with that, they all do want to have strong impact, right? So when we look at that, we look at ways to diversify buying patterns, and looking at projects that are impactful has been really key for many buyers. It's great to see that the hunger to invest in local communities is really alive in many corporations, and it could also be a part of your portion of your buyer's pattern as well. One thing with that, of course, is scalability. So how can you meet your scalability, but then also partner with folks like Seneca Environmental to include impactful RECs into your purchasing category? And again, by no means is there a one size fits all approach, but how many buyers are looking, you'll see on the right-hand side of the screen here, is that they're bundling it with other types of procurement mechanisms. So looking at PPAs, looking at longer term REC transactions, but then you'll see over time the long-term impact RECs are really growing. And so I'm really excited to hear from Mia from Pinterest momentarily to talk about how Pinterest was able to do that and leverage the tribal RECs from Seneca Environmental. Schneider Electric, we do partner with companies like Seneca Environmental really to bundle our corporate buyers' renewable energy goals to include these tribal projects so that there actually can be greater impactful diversification of their dollars. We also refer our clients to other organizations who really are actively working in areas to create equity and environmental resilience with clean energy involved. So with that, I'll pass it back to Matt.
Thank you so much, Serena. Yes, our approach to the REC market is that we see being able to provide RECs as a key component of helping to support the tribal renewable energy industry that is, in its early stages but growing fast. We think that corporates who actually want to buy RECs, conventional RECs, and special high impact RECs from projects that have a direct tribal benefit, we're happy to speak with you, and it's great to be kind of discussing this as another avenue to having impact with your RECs. The concept essentially of RECs is an important one because it's really helped give rise to a lot of the renewable energy industry, but it can be hard to see and feel. The additionality and the certification processes in place can make people feel comfortable that their impact RECs are qualified under the various standards. But we really want to make sure that there's a good story that goes beyond the traditional RECs so that you can show this is actually something that's happening with this somewhat amorphous purchase. So that's where we come in terms of our ability to actually provision RECs on behalf of corporates and to go out and make relationships with the smaller projects that have RECs for sale in Native communities. So we're working on that now, and we are going to be selling those with a direct benefit to those communities when they're available. If you want to go to the next slide, Whitner, that'd be great. I want to talk a bit about the REC offerings with a focus on the sale to the General Services Administration. We haven't heard from them in the last year or so, or sorry, since January. But last year we sold a good number of RECs to the General Services Administration under what was called the Indian Energy Purchase Preference, which is a provision of the 2005 Energy Policy Act that the government had actually never been able to use to buy carbon-free energy from a tribally owned business. And we had a hero inside the government helping us get this across the line. Her name is Bonnie Buter, and she's still a friend. But she really was a driving force in getting this done before the end of the Biden administration. And what it showed, and the precedent it set, is that when the federal government is ready to re-engage with the climate action that we all know is necessary, there are specific provisions in law that allow them to buy from tribally owned businesses at a premium. In this case, we ended up saving them a lot of money from their previous year. So the premium wasn't actually that big compared to the conventional rec sales. But that said, the federal government can be a tool for helping to develop and be that offtake for tribally owned businesses. This procurement also helps set a standard that demonstrates the value of tribal recs, as we're calling them, which are come in different flavors. The one that we sold under this act to the GSA is essentially recs that are owned and controlled by a tribally owned entity at some point in their life cycle. We're also considering different factors for tribal recs that include whether they are on tribal lands, and especially important, how they actually benefit tribal communities. So more to come on that when we want to go deeper, but I think that's a good overview for now. And with that, I'd love it to hand it off to my friend Mia.
Thanks, Matt. Hi, everyone. My name's Mia Ketterling. I use she, her pronouns, and I am the senior sustainability lead at Pinterest. If you're not familiar, Pinterest is a visual discovery platform where over 500 million people come to decide what to eat, what to wear, how they want to do their makeup, what they want to buy. And I have been with Pinterest for about 10 years now and working on sustainability for the majority of that time, but as my full-time role since 2021. And in 2022, we set our first public commitment to power our operations with 100% renewable electricity. And we have global offices. We also have a sizable portion of our employees that work from home. So as part of that commitment, we're also committed to powering employee work from home electricity with clean electricity. This target was validated as part of our process to have our near-term science-based targets validated by the Science-Based Targets Initiative. And we wanted to, take a thoughtful approach here and align with the standards set by RE 100, which is really prioritizing in-country projects within the same year that the electricity was consumed, sourcing projects that maximize impact, and seeking certifications through things like Green E and Eco Energy. And then finally, we really wanted to have a positive social impact. So looking for opportunities where our purchases can have an impact beyond just a transaction. So looking to support communities that might need more support through the energy transition, as well as sourcing from projects that might have a better or a stronger environmental impact or biodiversity benefit. Over the past few years, I've really learned about the vital role that Indigenous communities have played in preserving much of the world's biodiversity. And that's really been driven by one of our employee resource groups that we call Pindigenous. We have a number of pin puns at Pinterest. And, have really developed a partnership with them over the years. They've done such a fantastic job on educating our employees about the role that tribal communities and Indigenous communities around the world play and how they are contributing to society today. So I definitely had my eyes and ears peeled for opportunities to partner with Native nations as part of our renewable energy work or our just kind of sustainability work overall. I had the pleasure of meeting Matt. We were both speaking on a panel, I think in 2022. And as we were exiting the stage, I basically asked him if they were selling Rex. So that initiated the conversation several years ago. And I'm so pleased that we have gotten to the point where we've been able to kind of solidify our partnership with Seneca Environmental. And for our last year, we purchased RECs from 15 countries that are equivalent to Pinterest global electricity consumption. And really, as part of that impact REC category, they were able to provide us with a number of RECs that were supporting a local project of a local ecosystem in a region that was oh my gosh, dominated by monoculture, which included no-mow native plants and pollinator-friendly practices. And as an added benefit, we know that the recs that were offered by Seneca Environmental allow Pinterest to address our emissions and footprint and reach our 100% renewable electricity goal while also supporting a tribally owned business in a native nation. So I'm so happy with this partnership. It's really meant a lot to us to be able to work with a partner like Seneca Environmental, who've taken such a thoughtful and careful approach with our purchases, and also as a two-person sustainability team. Has really made it really seamless for us to go through with this transaction, which I appreciate as my partner Aiko and I are juggling a number of different demands throughout the day, as I'm sure anyone who's in the corporate sustainability space can attest to.
Thanks, Mia. And yes, special shout out to Aiko. Thanks for working with us on this procurement. And yeah, Mia, I was thinking back to kind of how tenacious and clear you were about wanting to work together, and you were really the one driving it, and it really helped us make this shape this product in a way that it helped Pinterest achieve your goals and create a business line that is obviously very scalable and something we could get into right away. So really appreciate your leadership on that. Other ways, and Serena will talk about some more, but a couple other ways that came to mind about how to work with tribally owned companies. And there's quite a few in some of these categories and fewer in others, but we're happy to refer you if we know of folks who are working in these areas. One is a PPA or a VPPA, a power purchase agreement, or a virtual power purchase agreement from a tribally owned renewable energy project. This can take some time, and it's not readily available everywhere yet. But getting those key contracts is really the thing that will make the difference in this more challenging industry environment. So if you're interested in that, please let us know. Another example is to hire a tribally owned company who does site assessments to do a look at your facilities for solar and storage options, for fleet electrification, and for any other on-site work that you need to provide emergency resilience or decarbonization in general. This is going to be a huge next phase as companies seek to address their scope ones and electrify their plants. Some of our customers are not sure how they're going to achieve this one as they run out of scope two. I mean, as they achieve their goals on scope twos, converting their scope one on-site fossil fuel use to electricity is a big challenge. And I hope that everyone will stay focused on innovating in that space and supporting tribally owned businesses as you do. Another one is to engage workforce development and hiring programs in local areas, especially ones that support Native communities, and to look for other products and services that Native communities can provide and Native and tribally owned companies can provide. An example from our really amazing friends at HP, who are also very focused on engaging with tribes, is sustainable sourcing of timber from the Confederated Tribes of the Colville Reservation. These are forest management practices that are meant to rejuvenate the forests in northeastern Washington, one of the most timber-reliant economies in the country. And the specific wood from that area is featured in HP's new facility in Vancouver, Washington. I can't wait to come get a tour. But it was another example of other industries that tribes can participate in your supply chain. I'm sure there's more, and I'll hand it over to Serena for some other ideas.
Awesome. Yeah. And PPAs and VPPAs always are fabulous ways that you can partner, but also meet your sustainability goals, as Mia talked about with the RECs. Some other ways, though, that you can work with tribally owned companies and really engage them in your climate action plan, as well as what their plans are specifically, is to look at maybe your own operations to see if there are co-benefits that could provide, that you could provide really to tribal communities that use your products, services, and maybe fund initiatives with your company's philanthropic dollars if that type of pillar sits within your company. Mia mentioned that they have one, and I think every company should have one. So if you don't, then maybe it's time to think about starting one. But just some examples that I wanted to share here. The First Nations Technical Institute in Ontario, they wanted to increase their resiliency with their own expansion projects to not have to rely on nearby diesel generators. So in order to help their low cost, reliability, and sustainability mission, Schneider Electric was able to provide a microgrid to integrate the solar and battery energy storage systems, as well as some smart monitoring software to improve optimization and forecasting for them. And so this type of project, which I know not every company has the ability to do that with, but I think there are creative solutions that every company can offer if it's something that the tribe needs. But this project, as well as the village of Ijuwijig in Alaska. I try and say that right. It's a hard one, but I think I did an okay job. But really, these types of tribes can create what they need for their own operations, right? Whether it's for energy resiliency, whether it's for their community, if they need something with the school. There's really a lot of operations that are sometimes needed in these local communities, and just being a little bit creative with what your type of solutions your company can provide, again, as well as potentially funding certain initiatives, can all really be great causes. It's always great to, of course, ask the tribes for permission to explore these causes before you just kind of jump in and assume what they need. So that I would say is definitely a guide and recommendation, is to let them lead. Always be sure to ask for that permission before any type of donation, whether it be monetary or otherwise.
Serena,
Nice.
on the subject of Alaska, I just wanted to add something that I had in my notes in terms of future high impact RECs, because you reminded me. There's a bunch of Alaska Native villages that are doing smaller scale or community scale renewables right now to displace diesel, which is a main form of fuel for electricity production. And as you can imagine, incredibly both polluting and expensive. So solar is a really great backup or alternative for that diesel. And our Whitner, who's running the slides for us, is actually in Alaska right now. Thanks, Whitner, for going and visiting. I'm sure it's an amazing experience that we'll be hearing more about. But the thing that he told me about that I was just not used to being in the lower 48 is that these electricity is being used to heat the water pipes so that water can run through them in freezing cold temperatures. So the amount of impact that RECs coming from these projects can have is massive, because they are actually allowing to displace diesel, support Alaska Native villages, and to make sure that clean water and drinking water is available. So that's a little teaser for some of the impact RECs that we'll be talking about later in the future. And thanks for the reminder, Serena.
Yeah, great ad, Matt. I can't wait to see those. All right, you can pop to the next slide, Whitner. Perfect. So I just want to pause on this slide for a moment. There really are, of course, some guidance and guidelines, I guess, if you will, to pause and just take a moment to consider if partnering with the tribal government is really right for you and your organization. So we've taken some time to think about what that means. And if you were at our first webinar last year, this is a refresher for you, but always a really good refresher. So 4 kind of main points that we think all corporations should really consider and ask yourselves before you begin partnering with tribal governments. One is having that intentional integration, right? So there needs to be dedication to thoughtfully learning about the tribe's past, present, and future. And so that will take time. Of course, you're not going to be able to have a crash course in that, but really just taking the time, hearing from folks that have experience. There's a number of organizations that are able to even provide type of education seminars on that. So really would have you dedicate the time to really think about what that means for yourselves as well as your employees. The second one would be is there strong roots that already exist within your company? With Pinterest, it seemed like there absolutely was. And so that's always a good question to ask yourself is your company's culture ready? Are there already benefits for Native communities that exist? And can your renewable energy procurement really amplify that? The third thing is it's not the status quo, right? So you need to be open to new ways of doing things in the clean energy. Clean energy, renewable energy in general has been around for decades, right? And by no means is it going to be, as I mentioned before, a one size fits all approach. And so I think just working and opening up to the idea that it will be different to do things. It might take more time. It might not come as what you assumed it was going to be like, and just know that that's okay. But always good to make sure that you're open to that. And then last but certainly not least is the holistic approach. So as we just heard from Matt, there's a number of reasons why folks do want to have clean energy, especially solar, especially in Alaska. Not only there, but all over, of course. But not only that, they're looking for ways to weave multiple initiatives together. So with water, with land, again, like you heard Matt on the timber story, and then energy. So it's not like they're working in siloed approaches. They're really trying to combine everything together and really make the best outcome for all of the natural resources involved. So it's really recommended to take time to learn from trusted individuals and companies about ways to respectfully work with Native communities. And the traditional clean energy procurement that you might have heard about or be used to from other types of projects that you've done will likely look a bit different with partnering with the tribal government. And know that all Native communities are different. So one will look different than the other, which again is okay. So yeah, it's best guidance just to follow their lead, become adaptable, and if you really would like to build a lasting relationship, then by all means, this is for you. And I think with that, Winona is going to talk about how to maximize your impact at Seneca.
We may have lost Winona. There is a storm in Western New York right now. So we'll wait for Winona to rejoin us. In the meantime, maybe I could talk a little bit about the impact of the Seneca Nation's businesses on the community. So, Rosanna, do feel free to put Winona back on when she rejoins. But this has been one of the most meaningful parts of building this company, along with the Seneca Nation that I've been a part of, is the actual impact that the businesses have had over the long term on the Seneca Nation. Oh, good, Winona. I'll hand it back over to you.
I'm not sure where you left off. I had internet storm problems. Sorry, guys.
I was just getting started.
Okay. Okay, good. So as a member of the Seneca Nation, of course, I've been able to be positively impacted by the different businesses that we have. I don't know if Matt has already said this, but generally Native nations do not collect taxes from our members. That is kind of a bad word, taxes. The Seneca Nation, as I mentioned earlier, has a couple different businesses all over Western New York. And we have employees all over the country. Seneca Environmental, of course, is remote working, and my coworkers are literally everywhere in the U.S., all time zones. We have about 8,500 members, and we do get a couple different things on the next slides, if you could please advance, that has been very beneficial for us. The Seneca Nation's language fluency rate was very low, but is now improving. So the businesses that the Seneca Nation
I think we lost Winona again. Where she was headed, though.
operates.
Oh, you're back.
Hello?
We dropped off there for a minute. You're good now.
Okay. So I'm speaking about the Seneca Nation's Faith Keeper School. The Faith Keeper School is a school that was set up by the Seneca Nation to teach language, to teach our culture, and it's funded a couple different funding sources, but it's helped increase the fluency rate of the Seneca Nation. We also have other programs for adults, again, to preserve our language. We have a workforce program through specifically the Seneca Holdings, where we provide internship and training to both high school students and people who are in college. We didn't used to have this, of course, so we are basically trying to develop our professionalism, professional development among Seneca members. Can you go to the next slide? So I'm having internet problems, but the Seneca Nation did not used to have the internet in the past. We now have our tribal utility, Seneca Energy, who is providing internet across our territories. It's been great, of course, for people. Apparently not so great while we're having storms, but it's improved, of course, Seneca lives. In 1 month, approximately, we are going to be holding one of our big cultural events. If you weren't aware, powwows are open to everybody. It's meant for socializing, basically. So people from all over the country attend. It's a big event for us. We would love to have you here if you're interested, and I might be there as well, so maybe we could say hi in person. There are things that are not listed on these slides that the Seneca Nation offers. An example is home ownership programs. We have a mortgage program that now allows Seneca members to, at a very low interest rate, purchase homes. We also have higher education that is paid for in full for Seneca members, which would have been great while I was getting my master's degree, but it exists now for Seneca members and me if I choose to go back for more schooling. Another example is we have our garbage picked up at no cost to Seneca members. Now, something I would like to reiterate, because I didn't say it earlier, and I'm not sure if Matt said it, is we need to remember that each Native Nation makes choices for their people. So what Seneca does for our community may or may not be done elsewhere. It's important to respect what each Native Nation chooses to do. So just remember to have open conversations and respect what the different tribes choose. I'm all set. Thank you.
Thanks, Nona.
Great. Thanks so much, Winona. That was a great overview. And I learned some new things, as I always do in these. And I want to thank all of our great speakers, as well as Whitner, for running the slides. And I want to just run one more poll now. Let me launch that to ask how you intend to work with tribes in the future, yes or no, or maybe you're not sure. Hopefully you'll be considering it more after this webinar. And please, if you have any questions, put them in the questions Q&A. We have a few coming in, and let's see. I'll just let the poll go a little more. All right. Let me just share the results there. So it looks like we got yeses and not sure's, no nos. So glad to see that. And we certainly hope that you will think about it more now. Okay, so Winter, why don't you go to the next slide? I just want to make sure that people know that we're going to have a bunch of resources available to you in the slides when you get them, as well as the recording. You'll get the slides with all these links, and feel free to contact us and follow up. And if you think of questions later, please also go ahead and contact us with those questions. So I'd like to get into some of the questions now. And Whitner, if you want to stop sharing the slides, that's okay too. So we can maybe everyone can come back on camera for the questions. Don't be shy, speakers. Okay, the first question we have is the potential end of the investment tax credit a threat to native clean energy projects? Obviously, there's a lot of uncertainty these days. Anyone want to take that one?
I'm sure Serena will have good information to add here, but it's going to be a challenge if these tax credits do go away. It was a key component. But what I like to make sure and reemphasize is that renewables, especially solar, will continue to be the cheapest form of energy and will outcompete. Even without the tax credits, I don't think these projects are going away. They do currently occupy a key part of the capital stack, but this is going to just increase prices downstream. But solar, I think, will continue to win. So don't count us out yet, even if those ITCs get more restricted. Serena, would you update that or change any of that?
No, I think the only thing I would add, and again, this is just hearing from other individuals that have closer relationships, but it's great to see that others are stepping into the role. As we all know, many Native American communities are very adaptable to what's presently being handed to them. And because of that, they are being flexible and looking for other ways to continue to succeed, because not succeeding is not an option, right? So I've been hearing that there are more philanthropic dollars, which is why I think we've all mentioned that looking internally to see where those philanthropic dollars lay is something that can be extremely beneficial, especially right now. So yeah, it's encouraging in one way, and then it's not as encouraging in other ways based on what's happening with the IRA. But I think overall, we all have a North Star, and by all means, that's continuously being followed.
Yeah, and corporate procurement will play a key role in those future projects, especially the ones that are larger scale for power export. If they do happen, it will be because corporates plant their flag in the sand and say, we're doing this, kind of like Mia did. So more to come on that, and I remain hopeful.
Yeah, that's a good point, Matt. I think that, that really emphasizes that now is a great time for corporates to be part of this and make sure that we keep deploying more solar, because that's what we all need. So, Serena, you talked a little bit about philanthropy. I have a question here. Can you give examples of philanthropic goals associated with Native communities?
Yeah, so I guess the philanthropic goals is going to look different for each corporation, of how you would like to meet those goals. And then it's also going to look different for every single Native community. They're all going to have different goals, whether it's based on water that they need to make more clean for their population, whether it's moving away from diesel generators, whether it's relying on more agriculture in their communities to not have to drive many miles on very bumpy roads to go and even meet their food and resources needs to keep their families not hungry, right? So I'd love to give a specific, but it's going to look different.
Right. Yeah. So that really goes along with what Winona said, that, all these different Native nations have different goals, and it's important, like you said before, Serena, to really get to know them and really understand what their needs are and not just assume something. Matt, you talked a little bit about this, but someone's asking, how would you define a tribal rec? Is there anything more that you would say about that?
Yeah, I think it's still in development as the market kind of continues to develop and see what is available. The rec market is complicated as it is, so we're working to figure out exactly what types of projects can be supported with pre-purchase of recs, what projects already exist where recs can be sold to provide additional benefit, tribally owned projects, that is, and then also how kind of the impact can be quantified for projects that have a complex ownership structure. So, for instance, the Moapa projects that we talked about, those are owned by third-party developers at this point. And to me, those third-party developers are already getting their profits from the deal structures. And I think that if there is going to be a tribal rec sold from those projects, the benefits should go to the tribe. So that's an example, and Moapa has its own situation, and I don't think that there are going to be new recs coming from those projects. But my point is that if there's a third party owner of a project, we need to work together to make sure that something that's called a tribal rec really matters to the tribe and has impact. So more to be sorted out, and we'll be doing that in the coming years as these projects come online.
Great. Well, let me follow up with another question about RECs. This is about Seneca providing international RECs. What countries do you source RECs from?
Great question. Thank you. I don't have the full list in front of me, but Mia might, since most of that was done for the Pinterest procurement. Mia, do you want to jump in on that?
And we can just give some examples. It doesn't have to be the full list.
Yeah, so we were able to source Rex from 15 different countries, I believe, that covered as like the RE 100 standard state that they should be within the same country or region where you're actually using the electricity. So we have offices um, in Ireland, the UK, Australia, Brazil, Mexico, lots of different areas all over the world. And from my perspective on the buyer side, it seemed pretty easy. So I don't know if Matt from the Seneca side would have a different point of view, but we had previously been purchasing Rex or EACs from a different provider, and the transition to working with Seneca was incredibly seamless, and it really made things, just as easy on the buyer side for our international and global footprint.
Some people on the team did put in some work to get all that done, but I'm really glad it was easy. And thanks again to Whitner and Winona for your work on those projects. Singapore was an interesting one, but yeah, international Rex, it's a different world, so it took some learning on our behalf, and that was one of the reasons we were happy to do it, is we got to flex those muscles.
Great.
I can jump in
Yeah,
quickly.
go ahead.
She mentioned a couple of the countries. I helped to do the retirement of the RECs, the documentation both for Pinterest and for the GSA purchase. And the retirement process was certainly a learning experience for me. But doing the international ones was rather easy for us because we worked with somebody else to assist us to help learn. So this was absolutely a team approach that we did. So Mia, thank you for the feedback. It feels good that we did it right. We were very worried and we wanted to do it right. My background as a compliance officer made me paranoid that it was going to be wrong. So I just thank you for that.
I was always confident in you, Winona.
Yes, as were the
Okay.
rest of us. Well, since we're on RECs, Mia, here's a question for Pinterest. Has Pinterest found it challenging in the past to purchase RECs with a meaningful social impact?
Yeah, so for Pinterest, our consumption, our demand is relatively small. We're not at the level of an Amazon or an Alphabet, and we're not building our own renewable energy projects, and we don't really have the demand to kind of really meaningfully contribute to something like a PPA or a VPPA, although there are more options for smaller buyers like Pinterest. So that really kind of limited, the levers that we had. And there are, I think an increasing number of higher impact RECs available on the market, but it is something that you really have to be actively searching for, communicating with your partners that that's something that you're interested in, looking at the options. Sometimes they're available, and by the time you decide, they're not available anymore. So sometimes you need to be a little bit nimble and flexible. But our partnership with Seneca was really the first time that we were able to you know not check the box, because it's not a box checking exercise at all, but we were able to achieve our goals to have higher impact RECs through our partnership with Seneca, and then with those higher impact, higher biodiversity projects for some of our US RECs that we purchased as well.
Great. So does Pinterest plan to continue working with Seneca or other Native groups in the future?
Yeah, I think we're always looking for, more opportunities to partner with Native groups and tribal communities. And of course, really want to take a thoughtful approach. And that was something that we needed to be kind of cautious about in our, evaluation of the partnership. We really wanted to make sure that that this wasn't actually inadvertently harming a community, because we know that, Native nations and tribal communities have been misled by businesses in the past. So we really wanted to take a thoughtful approach. But of course, I want to continue this work and continue on, our kind of maturity trajectory as we continue our program and to define new ways to have even a bigger impact as we continue to grow as a business.
Great. I see there's a very specific question here from a Native-owned company in manufacturing of renewable energy technologies that creates job and wealth for the tribes. Is Seneca interested in these types of projects? We can certainly follow up later, but does anyone, Winona, Matt,
Yeah,
do you
thank you.
have any thoughts on that?
Absolutely. The collaboration between tribally owned and native owned businesses is something that I've been really excited about seeing. It happens across the spectrum. There's a lot of different industries that tribally owned and native owned businesses are involved with, but renewable energy manufacturing is a big one that could be very lucrative. There's a lot of risk there too, but yeah, I'd be happy to talk with Pete offline. I also wanted to give one more shout out to our friends at now they're called Clean Counts, previously MRETS, the Midwest Renewable Energy Tracking System. They're a nonprofit platform that helps track RECs, and they were incredibly helpful to us, guiding us through the process and teaching us what they know and helping to ideate on a lot of these topics that we're working on. So thanks to y'all. I know some of you are online.
So, and then here's another question. How can we learn about other Native communities and companies who are doing the kind of work that Seneca is doing?
Serena, do you want to take that one?
Yeah, I can take this one. Yeah, so Schneider Electric, and I don't think I mentioned this at the beginning, but we do advise on a global basis for many multinational corporations that are voluntary energy buyers that have many SBTI goals, probably like some of you on the call today. So we definitely have a large network of more traditional developers, as well as folks who really are trying to get into the local communities to partner with Native communities, right? So there are a number of entities that we work with or like to partner with in different avenues. And one of them is Seven Skyline. And they actually have a lot of connections with different Native communities. So that is someone that I would say is really doing a lot in the work. There is the Tribal Alliance. And so the Tribal Alliance, they also are able to work with different organizations and different Native communities, and someone that again is really great to work with. And then just on an impact basis, there's folks like the American Farmland Trust that is doing impactful agriculture work across the industries, and they're looking to potentially explore work with tribal communities. So I would say that there's a lot of options. It really just depends on kind of what your goals are at the end of the day and who you're looking to partner with.
Yeah, I would just second that, and just say that we're also happy to help if you have a specific question and we can be of use. Our focus is energy, but we do have a growing network among Native-owned businesses and tribally owned businesses. A couple other shout outs while we're on the topic, along with Seven Skyline and the Alliance for Tribal Clean Energy, who are both great partners. I would add the Solar Stewards Marketplace, who is doing high impact RECs with corporates. They do a great job focusing on community benefits agreements and making sure those REC purchases really count. And there's a number of others that I would like to list, but I don't want to go on too long over time. I would just say that we really view climate action and community impact as a collaboration, and we want to see everyone who can find the appropriate fit for their business. Obviously, even if that's not with us, we have a limited number of services we can provide. We're a small team, but we will help you find the right people if we can.
Well, I think that's a great note to end on, unless there are any further questions, but really a great emphasis that this is a collaboration among different Native groups, among Native communities and corporations, and we're all doing really important work. So we really appreciate you being here, taking the time today, and please do follow up with us if you have any further questions. I'll be emailing out all this information probably within a couple days, if not sooner. So feel free to reach out to us anytime. And thanks again to all our great panelists and to Whitner for running the slides and everything else he's doing with a lot of work with Rex. Thank you all very much for joining us today, and have a great rest of your day.
Take care, everyone. Thank you.
Bye-bye.